so tedious. Well, mourning simply went out of style. And just between you and me, even if you find yourself among illustrious souls, you can get awfully tired of the dead. Let me count my own. Lillian and Douglas, and their 2 young sons. Uncle John, and Mama, of course. 6. No, wait, 7. My brother Ernest was the first. I last saw Ernest in September of 1918. Slim and khaki, a mustachioed captain in the Army Corps of Engineers. My brother waved from the window of a train packed 3 boys to every double seat. They were headed for Newport News, where the battalion would ship out for Europe. By the time Ernest left for the coast, 5 million European soldiers had already disappeared into the sausage machine. That's what their commanders called the Great War. To understand why, you must call to mind some modern war. Think of the casualties endured in a year's time, or 5 years, or 10. Now imagine 60,000 men killed in a single day of combat. Meat fed to the guns. Imagine 4 years like that. America stared, aghast and uncomprehending, while the old world gorged on its young and smashed its civilization to pieces for reasons no one was able to explain. From the start, there was some war sentiment in America, but it was largely confined to those who knew there was money to be made selling weapons, uniforms, steel, and ships should America join the fight. Re-elected, barely, on a peace platform, our professor-president remained steadfast even when he was called a coward for refusing to involve us in the madness of foreigners. Then, 8 weeks after Woodrow Wilson's second inaugural, a document was captured and made public. In it, the German foreign minister urged the Mexican government to join Germany in a war against the United States and, in so doing, to reclaim the lost lands of New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas. Call me cynical. I always thought that document was a fraud. And if it were genuine, why send our boys to France if the threat was on our southern border? Of course, I was just a schoolteacher, a woman without a vote of my own or even a husband to persuade. The men all said that document changed everything. Certainly, Mr. Wilson believed it did. When he turned the ship of state toward Europe, the nation cheered and felt gratified to have exciting newspaper stories to talk about at breakfast. Those of us who saw no need for war found the enthusiasm of our fellow citizens bewildering. I read all the papers, frantic to understand why this was happening to my country and to the world. To me, Mr. Wilson's conversion was so shocking, it seemed St. Paul had renounced Christ to become Saul once more. But there you are. The reason for going to war might be a shameless hoax, but the war itself was real and, by God, America was in it. In fact, Mr. Wilson informed the nation, the Almighty himself no longer wanted America to stand aloof from the slaughter in the old world. America, the President declared, was born to exemplify devotion to the elements of righteousness which are derived from the revelations of Holy Scripture. By turning the other cheek, I wondered. Silly woman. No, exemplifying righteousness required America to fight a war to end all wars, a war so brutal and ruthless that war would never be waged again. Mr. Wilson assured us that this crusade was God's will and God's work. If Abraham Lincoln had erred in allowing the press to criticize the government during our Civil War, Woodrow Wilson vowed, "I won't repeat his mistakes." The president didn't repeal the First Amendment. He had, after all, recently sworn to uphold the Constitution. The press could print what it liked, of course, but the post office didn't have to deliver it. The Wilson administration ordered the confiscation of anything unpatriotic, which is to say anything critical of his administration. Total war demanded totalitarian power, Mr. Wilson told a compliant Congress. There are citizens of the United States, the president thundered, who have poured the poison of disloyalty into the very arteries of our national life. Such creatures of passion, disloyalty, and anarchy must be crushed. Anyone who protested or even voiced reluctance was called a traitor. Mr. Eugene Debs was sentenced to decades in prison. His crime? He said that a war abroad did not excuse tyranny at home. Mexico was all but forgotten in the excitement. That's why, by the summer of 1918, 1 million American men had been mobilized to fight, from career officers like my brother Ernest to draftees straight off the farm. Ernest's train left Cleveland carrying nearly 250 soldiers, including a boy from Worcester who seemed to have a dreadful cold. When the troops arrived on the Virginia coast 2 days later, more than 120 of the soldiers already had the flu. 60 others were ill within a day or two. In Ernest's last letter home, he confessed that he was afraid he'd miss the war. He was so eager to embark. I doubt he mentioned his headache to anyone else. The next letter we received was from a friend of his. Ernest had been buried at sea before the boat was halfway to France. Later, we learned that most of his battalion had sickened. Many died while standing on a French dock, awaiting orders in a chilly autumn rain. In October, the military finally canceled leave and liberty, but it was too late to make a difference. Railways had distributed the influenza with the same swift efficiency that carried coal, wheat, and livestock to and from every corner of the continent. Within weeks, the flu was everywhere. People spread the disease before they knew they had it, got sicker, brought it home, and died. Fiancés, parents, brothers and sisters kissed goodbye at train stations. Ambulance drivers, stretcher bearers, doctors, nurses, working until they died on their feet. Trolley conductors, shopkeepers, teachers. Waves of influenza broke across the nation, and all the while, the war ground on in Europe. Cleveland sent 41,000 boys over there. One of my students came to see me before he left. A boy named for the great Italian patriot Garibaldi. Gary, we called him at school. He was a good student. Arithmetic was his best subject, as I recall. Off he went with the 5th Regiment of the Ohio National Guard to revenge bleeding Belgium and rescue poor, brave France, to make the world safe for democracy and kill Huns for Mr. Wilson. Gary visited me again after he got home in 1919. "You were wrong, Miss Shanklin. The Grim Reaper isn't a metaphor," he told me. "The Reaper's real. I saw him. We went over the top, and machine guns mowed us down like a scythe through weeds. Row after row of us. You can't imagine, miss." No, not that. But I had seen men struck down in the streets of Cleveland. They'd leave for the office in the morning feeling fine. During the day, they'd complain of being hot and achy. By evening, waiting on the corner for a streetcar, they'd fall to the pavement, already dead or near to it. Gary soon became one of them. Poor boy. He had just married his sweetheart and found a job as a bank teller. He left work feeling woozy and never made it home for supper. Even then, before the worst of it, I wanted to escape from the sadness. I was older than the lost generation of the Roaring Twenties. I began